Hello, I'm Sudipto Mondal, and welcome to What's Your Ism? It's a show about political ideologies and theories of change in an increasingly volatile and ever-changing world. Now, those of you who follow this show, I'm sure, are aware that what we are focused on is what's vital and not what's viral. The activists, thinkers, authors, lawyers, journalists, and intellectuals we've featured on this show have left me more educated, and I hope that's been your experience too. The show is also built on things I learned through several years as a field reporter. In all these years, I've traveled to different parts of the country and the world to understand people and their political motivations. If you think that my physical and mental labor brings value to your life, if you find yourself educated by this show, please consider compensating the News Minute for the people and infrastructure they've invested in a show like this. You could also directly fund the production of What's Your Ism by paying whatever amount you think is appropriate directly by scanning this QR code. Hello and welcome to What's Your Ism? Now, if you've been following the show, you might have noticed one big gaping hole, a big gap. I've interviewed lawyers, activists, scholars, intellectuals, but we've never had the most important segment of Indian society, the most important segment of Indian intellectuals, which is student leaders and student activists. So for the first time on What's Your Ism, I have two student leaders. The reason is obvious, which is, it didn't hit me until it slapped me in the face. We haven't had any student leaders so far, and now, it's about time I did that. We have with us Aratrika De from AISA, which is the All India Students Association, which is the student wing of the CPI-ML Liberation, and Rahul, who is a leader of the Ambedkar Students Association in the Agriculture University in Bangalore. You're the former president of the AISA as well, and Aratrika is the General Secretary of the AISA Bangalore. Guys, welcome to What's Your Ism?
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you, sir.
Now, the first thing, this show is about ideologies, and I have deliberately called somebody from the red section and someone from the blue section. Now, somebody watching this show would get confused as to who is red and who is blue. You're dressed in blue and you're dressed in red. I just noticed that.
That's the kind of mix we need, I guess.
That's the kind of mix we need? Do you think that?
Yes, as per the current situation, it is required. And in a very positive way, we all student organizations should unite to actually break this force of what communal forces acting towards the student wings or to the entire student mass in this country. So, yes, we need this.
Aratrika, what are your views on the blue question? The blue question often comes up in the communist conversations. Where do you see a space for all of that in your politics?
So, at least in the Indian context, I think it's not possible to even think of any kind of radical structural change without very seriously, without tackling the question of caste head on. Because in India, the question of caste and question of class are inseparable in my opinion, and also in the opinion of AISA and the party as a whole. The way I look at it is that what the Modi government, what this RSS BJP regime fears the most is the unity of all the marginalized, all the oppressed sections of the society, and that of course very strongly includes the Dalit masses, the workers, the peasants of the country, the Muslims, the women, the other minorities, religious and gender. So it's the unity of all of these forces that the Modi government fears the most. And that's precisely why, even in terms of the recent protests that we saw, or the protests that we've seen in, say, 2016 after the institutional murder of Rohith Vemula, the kind of spontaneous outrage that we have seen on the streets, the kind of unity that we have seen, particularly of the left student organizations and the anti-caste student organizations, the Ambedkarite student organizations. This unity is what the Modi government fears the most. So I think all of our task is to strengthen this unity going forward.
I'll get into more questions about the unity and the points of convergence and the points of divergence, right? So Christ College, as you know, is this very authoritarian, you know, students can't speak, teachers can't speak. And suddenly one morning when we're going into class, we see this huge gathering of people and they're protesting. They've come from outside campus and they go on to slap some of these these authority figures. Just for that split second, we were like, wow, somebody, you know, in a sense, cut them to size. But later we discovered that this was the ABVP and they were protesting against beef in the canteen, you know. Without knowing it, we celebrated that little intervention, where at least some of the people who were like our, jailers were little cut to size. But that is all the politics we had, in an institution like that. And I'm sure even today it's like that, most private institutions. But Bangalore, per se, has been fairly out of this whole student politics space. So my first curiosity is with you guys, how did you get into student politics? What's the origin story? Why take all the trouble? Who wants to go first?
So I'm not from Bangalore actually. So my political intervention also did not start from here. I did my BSc in Presidency University, which people know as one of the most political hotbeds of India since before independence. But curiously, I did not get into politics while I was there. I was very studious. I was only doing physics. Later, during my masters, I went into IIT Kharagpur. At that time, I was dropped into a campus that was very Sanghi from a place that was overtly left-leaning. So for the first time, I felt that there are so many people around me studying science, trying to, understand the truth of everything. But there was no kind of question against the establishment coming from them. So it is this question that why are they like this that made me seek some kind of political organization on campus.
You sought out a political organization?
Yeah.
Which means what? I mean, there was some grounding in some politics, some ideological shaping had already happened by this time. Were you already left-leaning by this time?
Yeah, I would say so, because the thing is, if you grow up in West Bengal, particularly at a time when, like, you have seen CPM for some time, you may not agree with their politics, but overall in the society as a whole, there would be an overall, the idea that, okay, communism can be the solution to things. That's something you grow up with. CPM was never the solution or even pretended to be one, but that's what we saw over there at least. So that kind of, the idea that what this Modi government is doing, or the way capitalism is kind of putting us towards global hitting, all these were questions that I had in my mind and was looking for answers for all of those.
How many years ago is this?
This is back around 17, 18, after that whole JNU sedition row happened, Rohith Act, institutional murder, all of it. So there was an environment in the country as a whole. In that situation, I was looking for answers in a place that was very, I would say, career-oriented, a very Sanghi place where you're not even allowed to ask any kind of question. So that's where this whole thing that I need to seek out some kind of organization, people who would be at least be willing to ask some questions. That's where it came from. So that's how I became part of this study circle called Ambedkar Bhagat Singh Study Circle. You also might be knowing that after that entire 2016, that huge, spurt of student movement, there were outfits like this cropping across these institutes of eminence. We had the Ambedkar Phule Periyar Study Circle. We had the Ambedkar Periyar Madras. Then this is Bombay. In Madras, there was the Ambedkar Periyar Study Circle. There we had the Ambedkar Bhagat Singh Study Circle. So I wanted to be part of that, and I actively sought it out. So that's how my kind of foray into student politics began.
Rahul?
So, rather than saying a student politics, I started my student activism. As a student activism, it's way back in 2015 when I started my undergrad in the same university which I'm studying, University of Agriculture Sciences, Bangalore. So I was first the member of AISA when I got into this very prestigious university which runs 60 years back. And political view for me was completely different. It was very unorganized. Only three parties existed in Karnataka. One is Congress, JDS and BJP. But way back, even my history goes with my father was also a a BAMSF worker.
BAMSF is the organization that was started by Kanshiram, the founder of BSP.
Yes, and he was an employee, and he used to do his BAMSF camps in the weekends. So he used to take me there. So it was, and that point of time, it was not known to me. He used to take me, and it was just a orientation class for me at that time. But when I look back now, the kind of base which I got, especially the roots of Bahujan movement in Karnataka, not many people get that kind of exposure which I had got. But coming back to my how student activism led to the student politics. So when I came to university, especially the first biggest plus point is I joined to an Ambedkarite organization.
Were there other organizations?
There were, but they were not named under any groups. So in agriculture sciences, we completely more keep our times on research activities. So there is very less time and space for student activism. But yes, student activism in the name of political wings like ABVP or NSUI, they will be working not in the forefronts, but the thing is they are working in the background. But ASA in the universities are the members of that particular colleges. So when I joined there, we started our student activism by having an Ambedkar reading circles within the campus itself. Our class used to end from 8:30 to 4 o'clock. Afterwards, we used to organize. We started from annihilation of castes, and Buddha and his Dhamma by Baba Sahib. And so these were the basic books which actually enlightened us by not just being a blind Ambedkarite. Because who is an Ambedkarite? Who focuses on education, who focuses on rational thinking, who always focuses on to have an equality, and harmony should be maintained in the university spaces. And how that can be achieved is through a continuous learning process and to question what injustice is happening and to organize your fellow members through your knowledge and constitutional values. So this is what gave us in this particular Ambedkarite Student Association. And to proudly say it, so our organization, especially ASA US Bangalore, started in 1976.
I actually want to get into the history of both your organizations. If you can, that's a very nice introduction from both of you. Now I understand, that there is this fertile ground which gives birth to ideas. And I was about to ask you as a follow-up question as to what does Ambedkarism mean for you, and by referencing those texts, I kind of get an idea as to where it's coming from. But in the case of Aratrika, so you say that in IIT Kharagpur is where you sought out a left organization. So like Rahul was saying, there were some foundational texts that, built his intellectual, response to all of what is happening. What were your foundational texts? Did you get introduced before you came into IIT, or did you?
No, not before. For me, the foundational texts were mostly writings by Bhagat Singh. What has really stayed with me through the years, like something every time I read, I find something new out of it, is To Young Political Workers by Bhagat Singh, where he's saying that this British rule, it's like a parasitic exploitation on India, and it will continue even if the white sahibs are replaced by brown sahibs. That state of war will continue in India. So I think for me that has been something I have repeatedly gone back to, and also this is something I repeatedly ask the newer comrades to read and really take to heart. So that's one text I would refer to. And interestingly, when we were having the study circles back then, Annihilation of Caste was one of the first texts that we also came across. That was also we all of us read together. Apart from that, mostly it was a bit of Arundhati Roy, a bit of Anand Tiltunde, all of that thrown into the mix.
Wow. And now for both of you, if you can talk about, see, I know what was my real Geronimo moment, where dimag phat gaya, something exploded in my head. And that happened when I went to Asian College of Journalism, and I had the great fortune of coming in touch with three formidable intellectuals. One was a Marxist, P. Sainath, Kancha Ilaya, and my own classmate who, I kind of am embarrassed to say he's my classmate because he's so much ahead of all of us in that way, Chitti Babu Padawala, who's a Marxist, Dalit Marxist thinker. So these are people who introduce certain basic concepts to me, and one of the foundational concepts was this thing of who we are, right? That in the case of Ilaya, he talks about why I'm not a Hindu, right? In the case of Sainath, things such as the material analysis of how much does your coffee cost, what is the minimum wage. These are things that really got things clicking in my head. So for you guys, what are those foundational ideas which we are on a path now? You, Rahul?
Yes, especially when I become the president of this AISA US Bangalore, the kind of problems which we're encountering was too harsh, especially for a Dalit to have a first generation education in such a prestigious university. It is not a small task. Especially, I would like to again put up some of this background how a Dalit enters into a agriculture sciences university, because I am a representative of an Ambedkarite student organization and also as a Dalit student who is facing a lot of discrimination in the university. So 50% seats are exclusively reserved for farming background students, and rest 50% is through KCET. Why this 50% has been segregated only for farming community people is only to make sure that those people who are doing their agriculture and agriculture and labor activities daily should have a formal education in this. So when they graduate out of this university, they will have a lot to contribute to the farming community. Because we might know that agriculture sciences might be it is only one kind of a colonial kind of agriculture or a traditional kind of agriculture which has practiced throughout the years through experience or through word of mouth. But institutions and universities, what they do is research and extension and education are the three mandates of the agriculture university, which means whatever we get educated, we should put our knowledge into research and come out to a extension so that it ultimately reaches to the farming community. But okay, what is education giving is the human resource. It is creating a valuable human resources to the society. So how this valuable asset should be created? It is only created in classrooms. So if a Dalit enters into this kind of universities, he will have exposure to the most valuable knowledge or most valuable text literature of this particular university, and his knowledge is implemented in his research in his MSc and PhD, and when it come out, it will be hands on, it will be more practical when it reaches to the farming community. Especially when a Dalit enters in this university, especially 80% to 90% are the first generation kids which enters into our university. I think so in many of the other technical or medicine or humanities, it will be having a combination of an urban and rural. But here it is completely comprising 80 to 90% of rural population students who are accommodating in this university. And again, as a Dalit student, he is not only facing from the education point of view, he is facing a lot of hostel problems, scholarship problems, stipend problems. You might say that, what are the small things? What is a scholarship? Why is reservation needed for a Dalit? And this is a science stream, right? When we say that in IISc there is no reservation properly implemented, in IITs there is no proper reservation implemented. Why should a proper science university should have equal representation? Sorry, we should not say it a reservation, it is representation. Why should the representation should be given to marginalized communities in this university? Because the kind of hunger which they have in their when they come out of their villages and when they graduate out, right, the kind of knowledge that they are going to dispense in their particular ways, it is not only, it is changing the life of many by a single man's education. And there are a lot of criticisms, especially to the Dalit students in our university, stating that you people are getting free mess fees, free hostels, and you're getting free educations, which means to say that, especially from the so-called Savarnas in our universities, and you know that now representation is equal, or you say that now reservation is now equally distributed according to the population, but all eyes are on scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. And especially that very thing, the discrimination what a first generation was undergoing in our university, actually sparked out to make sure that Ambedkarite movement is a voice to the voiceless. As the first Mookanayak's publication, what does it say? Mookanayak means he is the voice to the voiceless. So in that perspective, I got a bit of it, because I also come from a very, I will not say that a second generation education hold seekers. Means I get a formal in a very good school, in a very good university. But when I see a same Dalit who comes from a very marginalized rural background, and he doesn't have this formal way of approach to anything. So should I sit simply? And being a leader also, I should make sure that we should make a level playing ground to all these students. And Dalit boys and girls are not afraid of competitions. They're always ready. And now they are, now you make, I can strongly say that they are on par with the general merit students. The kind of research they do in the university is too good, and the kind of attempt they make towards their research is, you can't, it's unimaginable, the kind of research material they are publishing it. So in that way, I was very fortunate, and also that very thing sparked. There are many instances, if I say that, there are some cruel instances which has happened to me and as well as my fellow Dalit students in AISA, which we had faced, and now also we are facing it. So that actually sparked me to become even more refined and an intellectual Ambedkarite in the university spaces.
Interesting. Thank you for that. Aratrika? I mean, this thing of what I gathered from Rahul's answer is that, ideology is not something that exists in the clouds, right? There are conditions that exist on the ground. You're responding to them, and in responding to them, your ideology evolves. And you're looking for answers in the canonical literature, in the canonical texts, Ambedkarism, Bhagat Singh, Marx. What was happening to you at that time? So what kind of material conditions were you encountered with?
So for me, the experience was not as organic or as rooted in like personal experiences of discrimination as Rahul has or his like fellow activists or students have faced. For me, it is more connected to what was happening in the country as a whole. So I would say for me, the first thing that kind of pushed me towards seriously considering that this is something I want to prioritize in my life or be deeply involved in was the anti-NRC protests. The way it kind of encouraged a lot of people to spontaneously come out on the grounds and be part of the protest. In Bengal, for example, in Kolkata, I was part of this huge rally. In almost more than 1 lakh people participated. And we could see all kinds of people who were part of the rally. There was no age limit, no kind of limit in terms of which profession they were from. It was not like the typical intellectuals that you would see at a protest. It was not like that. So I would say that was the first thing. Like the entire that 4 to 5 months leading to the COVID lockdown, where that whole protest was going on in different parts of the country. Shaheen Bagh was happening.
By this time, you're already in IIT.
Yeah. This is happening with that idea. I already have some idea. Then I'm seeing what's happening on the ground.
Right.
It's like that. It's some connections are forming in my brain. Then as part of it, I'm seeing the kind of attacks that are happening in JNU, in Jamia, all those things are happening. Then Delhi riots, the crackdown on student activists, the crackdown on Muslims, particularly in Delhi and other parts of India. So all of this kind of pushed me to an even greater extent to kind of make me take that decision. Okay, this is something I want to do. I want to continue in my life. Like physics is not going to be my only priority in life anymore. Second thing is when the farmers' agitation started in 2020 and continued into 2021. There was one huge rally that happened in Bangalore on 26 January as part of the national call by Samyukt Kisan Morcha. So we were part of it. AISA was.
So by the time
I moved to Bangalore.
Okay.
I started my PhD. I joined AISA. All of those things had happened. As part of that rally, I felt that okay, this for the first time in a long time, this regime is getting a very, very significant challenge. This is a kind of challenge they cannot really overlook. They cannot really divert by bringing communal narratives. They cannot really use the Godi media to a very large extent to discredit. All of these things they were trying. But still, the upper hand was still being held by the farmers who were laying siege to in the outskirts of Delhi. So I would say these two were very important and defining moments when I realized that okay, this is something I want to do.
Mm-hmm. And that is, I think, a good entry point for us to get into what happened recently.
Of course.
In particularly in Jantar Mantar, but also in Freedom Park, also in different parts of the country. Patna and Bihar was on the boil. What are your initial reactions? I'm not going to put any words in your mouth. Of course, AISA was one of the most visible organizations in Bihar, in Delhi, as well as in Bangalore. I don't know about the other states. How do you analyze this uprising? Because, okay, there is, okay, let me give a slight tilt to it, which the tilt is really that for a lot of people, this is the first awakening.
That's true.
Right. But the illustrations that you just gave of the CAA and RC protests, the farmers' protests, these were also defined by similar kind of features, which is that the Godi media was sidelined. Rohith Vemula itself. I remember the funniest thing, or, ironical, I suppose, Arnab Goswami flipped. He started going after the government, saying, Smriti Irani, Jawab do, kind of, the first couple of days. This fellow was completely, and imagine after 2014, this demoralizing effect it had on all of us in civil society. Whoever has even a small progressive bone in their body felt personally injured by that 2014 verdict. So after that, suddenly in 2016, you see this flip where the Godi media does all of this. And then back then the Godi media term also wasn't coined. But nevertheless, my point is that many of the things that have become defining features of this agitation were actually seen in previous movements as well.
Yeah.
So therefore, I ask you, what is different about this one? Is it just the sheer number? Is it a certain kind of people getting in?
Yeah. So 2 points here. One is that questions regarding the entire crisis in education that is there in India right now. Starting from the National Education Policy 2020, which is kind of like a marriage of saffronization and privatization. The kind of crisis that NTA has already engineered since its very inception. This paper leak is not something that is happening for the first time. This has been the feature for quite a few years now. So student organizations, particularly the left groups, they have been talking about it for a while. Like all the groups, they have been talking about it for a while. But somehow we could not snowball into the kind of thing that happened this year. What I would say is that in this particular protest, it was not only directed against Dharmendra Pradhan or the NTA or NEET. It was directed against the entire fact that democracy is being eroded in the country. So that's why a very important component of it also came from an anti-BJP, anti-RSS kind of anger. That was a very important component of the protest. The reason why CJP snowballed to this extent is not only because there were NEET aspirants as part of the protesters. They were a minority, I would say. 90% of the protesters actually came from other grievances. They had pent-up anger against the Modi government. And we should also see it as kind of a continuation of the Noida protests. Because a very big chunk of the protesters who were present in Jantar Mantar, in Patna, in Mumbai, everywhere, they were people disgruntled with the unemployment situation or the entire precarity of their employment. So all these grievances that people have accumulated against the Modi regime over the period of more than a decade, I think it kind of found its expression through the entire protest that we are calling a CJP protest. But I would say that it would be very important to call it as a protest that is kind of an effort to get back our democratic rights. That's one point. Second thing is that not only workers but farmers also lent their support towards this protest. So that is also a very defining factor of this entire thing. And in the aftermath of it, we are seeing how there are spontaneous protests being engineered by students, like school students. They're actually like ghirowing their headmasters, they're laying siege outside their schools and demanding basic facilities that the government has denied them. So I think these are the lessons we need to learn from this entire protest and kind of ensure that this unity does not die down.
Rahul, picking from there, while there is, like Artrika said, coming together of grievances, but then some people would also say that, perhaps it could have been given a better ideological shape, right? Some people have said, it was a non-ideological protest. I don't know. I mean, there's a yes and a no answer to that. Where do you think the question of ideology gets addressed in this whole uprising?
Especially what the CJP or what the Gen Z protests started in Delhi, it was needed for, especially to youth, to get organized and to show that, yes, youth is one of the pressure points of this democracy. And as you know that this BJP had already had this mindset of bringing this electoral autocracy into the democracy, which means to say that this one nation, one election, so that itself one party, it is leading to this electoral autocracy. And that was what Hitler did.
He won elections, yeah.
He won elections. And yes, now whatever the BJP is doing, a communal politics, and over the long run, it was selling from past 12 years. And now the oppositions, what the job was to oppose these people, were not competent enough to counter these people. But what this Gen Z movement has given, especially the CJP, yes, as you saw, that it wasn't overnight agitation which happened within the students itself. Yes, it happened, but as you said, that ideological stand was missing in the CJP protest. Over the period, now somehow the outcome of this was the resignation of Dharmendra Pradhan. Now, should it continue without ideology, or just to unite to a problem and then get dismantled? No. Yes, this should be a good political organization if it actually shapes in a good way, but again, it should have an ideological stand, right? We saw the photos of Ambedkar, we saw the photos of Gandhi, we saw the photos of Bhagat Singh, which means that all the Ambedkarite groups, left groups, and all the Bahujan groups got united to this protest. Irrespective of all the differences, all the parents, all the elders stood because for their children's and to the students. And what was the Jai Bhim slogan, which actually gave a very good big voice in this protest. And also the Bhagat Singh's slogans. So nobody was able to question it. Right? Nobody was able to question that slogans, which means to say that youths and Gen Z have understood Ambedkarite and Bhagat Singh or Gandhi better than what these politicians have marketed us. So, coming back to the CJP's ideological stand, they should be well refined. They should not just be a uniting and a dispersing group. They should have this firm ideological stand, I know that the leaders in that, they should figure out what are the ideological stands which needs to take in the near future, and come up to make sure that the youth movement of this country should again be carried in the same way how it had happened in this moment. So this is how it should be.
Tell me, because see, if I were in your position, if I was either red or blue, right, leading up to this moment, there would have been a certain sense of frustration, a certain sense of not being able to breach the cellophane ceiling, right, which is you're not able to get this mass mobilization thing going, right. For the longest time, your predecessors perhaps would believe that the conditions have changed, that young people today don't give a damn about issues. They have no progressive bone. So we are without a constituency. How do we go and find this constituency? Now that we see this, and like Rahul and you both are saying, that there is definitely, there may be contradictions, but broadly there is some progressive thread running and connecting this whole thing together. If I were in your position, I would be very excited that, oh, well, there are all these potential cadres out there, right? So what kind of organizing activity do you think you should be doing now? What are you planning? How do you capture and give direction to this anger? What are your plans going forward? How do you organize this mass? Yeah.
So if you look at the protests that have happened in Jantar Mantar, or even what has happened in Bangalore or in other places, one of the consistent activities that we have taken up as AISA is to talk about the entire educational crisis that exists, not just limited to someone like Dharmendra Pradhan. Because even Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation, if you look at it, he is basically saying that I am leaving so that anti-nationals do not exploit this unrest. So that's also a very, it's kind of a very arrogant statement to make, I would say.
And the Prime Minister has forgiven all of you, by the way.
Yeah. Right. Because he has been abused while the other side has been lathi charged, tear gassed, all of it. But anyway, the question is that our presence in the protest has not only been in terms of like numbers, it has also been in terms of ideology and the politics of the entire crisis in education. That we have to take this fight beyond Dharmendra Pradhan, that we have to direct this fight towards the national education policy. The fact that in the past 10 years, 94,000 government schools have been closed in India. In Karnataka, schools are being merged. That's basically school closure. They're marketing it as school merger, but it's basically school closure that's happening. They're taking loans from international financial institutions to run these schools. They're giving over schools to private players. Government colleges do not have faculty to run their everyday classes. So that's the kind of crisis we're in right now, and it's not limited to Karnataka. It's an all India kind of situation.
And it is not limited to this small little time period we are looking at, because it started 20 years ago.
Yeah. It did not start today. It started since.
So what is special about now, and how do you organize now?
What is special about now is that it has, I would say, it has reached a tipping point, and it's because the anger is to such an extent that we saw these people coming out on the streets. And there are people in that crowd who would have voted for Modi, who would have supported Modi at some point, supported the BJP at some point. But now they are waking up to the entire danger. So I think right now this is when we should go to them and take our politics, say that we are looking for an India that does not only serve for that is not only democratic for the likes of Adani or Ambani. We want democracy to reach all of you. That's the kind of politics we have consistently tried to take to the public in all these protests. And through that, we have also received a lot of interest towards joining AISA, towards becoming part of our work. And that consolidation process is ongoing right now. Recently, we had a study on, again, Bhagat Singh, students and politics. For that, more than 50 people came just out of nowhere.
In Bangalore?
Yeah. In our office, that happened.
From what kind of colleges?
All private colleges.
Wow.
Not government colleges, private colleges. So that has happened. That is happening. So people are more willing to listen to politics right now. And I think it's very important that we use that chance, given that people are willing to listen to us.
No, and I think I must take this opportunity also to perhaps congratulate AISA, because of the fact that, you had, in a way, from outside we could perceive a kind of a command structure operating within this chaos, right? Which is that a common set of guidelines are being issued, which are put into action in Patna, Delhi, and Bangalore concurrently. That shows that a certain maturity, a certain coming of age of this organization, right? Because one of the most visible political student wings was AISA, right?
For many of the other student groups, they were initially a bit dismissive of the whole thing. So I think that also played a
You
role.
had this first mover advantage, definitely.
No, it's also having a grasp of what people are angry about. So I think that's the part that AISA played in Delhi, that understanding, okay, there's so much anger, we have to be part of this movement. Even in Bangalore, we have to be part of this movement. That idea was always there. But not just as someone who is part of some common demand that has been put out by CJP or anything of that sort, but taking the demand beyond that very superficial demand of one person's resignation. So that has been the undercurrent throughout.
But how is the mood in your camp? Is it buoyant? Because, you have so much visibility.
Yeah, it is. But also the idea that we have to do a lot of work now. Our overall participation within the students should increase now. That is also there. So there's a mix of seriousness and also a lot of happiness, I would say.
So, Rahul, now, it's great to see the emergence of a kind of a red-blue color combination kind of thing happening in these protests, where the red is very organized and the blue is very organic. Right. Tell me now, the red formations always have had the benefit of having a national organization. Even at their weakest, something like an ISF. AISF is the student wing of CPI, which is perhaps the most depleted of the left parties by way of number, by way of their ability to mobilize and all of that. But they still managed to produce a Kanhaiya Kumar. Forget what happened to him later, right? And I remember I was covering those 2016 agitations, what it meant by way of having an organization with a national footprint is that you could have breakfast in Delhi and dinner in Kerala. That somebody is there to buy you a ticket, to spread your word, to go out there, to become the zeitgeist of this thing. And that is one thing back then in 2016 was absolutely impossible to achieve for the Ambedkarite groups, given also the fact that the initial spark came from the death of Rohith Vemula. It came from the Ambedkar Students Association of HCU. And that explosion, the energy that it created, somehow was impossible for Dalit organizations or Ambedkarite organizations to kind of consolidate that energy. You had a BAPSA, Birsa Ambedkar Phule Students Association in JNU. You had an ASA in Hyderabad. You had an ASA unit, I remember, in Gujarat Central University. It was so exciting back then. In 2016, the Gujarat Central University ASA won the elections. Imagine winning an election in Gujarat and for a formation like ASA. So there are these little explosions happening within the campus. Okay, in Hyderabad University, ASA took the campus on its head. For a brief period, BAPSA was making waves in JNU. Rahul Sonpimple was here once for an interview. So, he delivered this entire Isbar Kabali Aayega, right? That speech, it became so famous, all of that. But there is definitely a huge, weakness in Ambedkarite organizing, which is that there is no national level organization. How do you think it's desirable? Do you think it is better to have small autonomous groups in campuses?
No, it is desirable to have an organized Ambedkarite. What you say that now BAPSA and ASA are actually a Ambedkarite and a Bahujan movement student wings. Yes, we are. I would like to say that how especially Ambedkarite student organizations are working in the very grassroots level. Especially majority of the people, especially from in ASA or in BAPSA, come from the rural background. And they do not have any kinds of organization inputs or organization exposures before coming to the university. So once they come in, forget that I should be an Ambedkarite or not is the second thing. Should I join Ambedkar supported Ambedkarite organization itself is a big question for them. They actually hide their identity. So whenever we welcome them, especially the Dalit students to ASA, we would just want them to be a joyful group in the university, so that we will learn Ambedkar very joyfully. By what? By music, through art, through his literature, and through readings. And yes, what is the main aim of this our ASA or BAPSA is to make sure that in this 4 or in his undergrad, he would at least know what Ambedkar's contribution was to the Dalit community, and also it was not only to the Dalits, to make sure that he was a man of the entire who contributed to every sect of India. Because the main perception of a Dalit student in in an university would be, no, Ambedkar is only restricted to a scheduled caste or a scheduled tribe. Student doesn't know what is his contribution beyond that. What is the contribution to his Hindu code bill? What is the contributions to women rights, to political rights, labor rights,
Land rights,
irrigation, corporations. So banking, yes, that is before banking it was cooperatives.
But I mean, let me stop you there. Sorry to cut you, but my question again, I hope you're, this thing of not having a parent organization, in terms of organizing on the ground, it is essentially left to the student individuals to run it in whatever way they see fit, in whatever way is possible. Now, possibilities open up when you have a parent organization, right?
Yes.
And somewhere, I don't know how you see it, but the BSP could have been that parent organization. Like in the case of AISA, there is CPIM. In the case of SFI, there is CPM. In the case of NSUI, there is Congress. In the case of ABVP, there is BJP.
We don't know who is there.
In the
That's
case-
what they claim.
ABVP.
Yeah, they claim they're not associated with the BJP.
Right. Oh, do they?
They're a nationalist organization that's
Oh, okay.
unaffiliated.
Okay, I should hang with them more to know their inner workings. But this thing of absence of a parent organization, despite having this such a, it's sometimes for me the thing about Ambedkarite movements, there's an element of magic in it. Why? Because there is no national footprint, there is no state support. They often say that Gandhi was kept alive by the state, and Ambedkar was kept alive by the people. Right? Which means what? That I have traveled pretty much to every state in India now, and I haven't visited a Dalit neighborhood in which there is no Ambedkar statue. Right? And that is something which is spread organically. So on one side, you have this national level organic spread. At another level, you're looking at no national level body. Where do you think that will come from? When will that happen? Should it happen?
Yes, as you said that, yes, BSP should have taken this movement. And especially in Karnataka, other than BAMSEF was related to only the employees. There was there is also now, there is a movement called BVS.
Bahujana Vidyarthi Sangha.
Vidyarthi Sangha.
Yeah, it was a very powerful organization. Yeah.
Very powerful, very organized movement, which is there in Karnataka.
Which was there
in Karnataka, and elsewhere in any other BSP cadre, you would only find BAMSEF. But here, especially the existence of BVS was I think so. It had a very strong cadre, student cadre, especially in the old Mysore region, and as well, also in northern Karnataka. And yes, at that time, BSP was like a parent body for BVS.
Or was it that BSP leaders, some leaders from the BSP were providing a parental influence, but the party formally was not
Yes, party formally didn't had BVS. The politicians in the BSP had made this student wing called BVS, because BAMSEF was only the what do you say, the organization structure of BSP. And as said, I am also one of the what do you say, I got a good camps in BVS, who attend the camps in BVS. So the main mandate of what Ambedkarite organizations is educate, organize and agitate. What BVS was doing was to educate and organize. Only educate and organize the students, which was very important. Because unless until you get educated and you don't get organized, there is no point of having your agitation. And agitation, you should not go for agitation directly. One should know what is our history, what is our forefathers or the Bahujan movement has given to us. So in that way, BVS was, and I would say, I wish that it again comes to good existence, is also doing a good work, especially to educate and organize the Bahujan movement in Karnataka. So in that way, if that model would have been continued, I wish that all this, our ASAs or BAPSA groups in Karnataka would have had a parent body, which is PSP. After, I know that BVS is not an official wing of BSP, but after,
No, I mean, ABVP is also not an official
Official
wing of
wing.
BJP, so I mean,
yeah.
it can still work.
But the thing is, after all these improvements, I think BSP would have taken the call of forming a student organization, Ambedkarite student organizations, right? Because people who are educated and organized, and still they do not have this political clarity, means. So I think so. You just leave them in the fields. They are unorganized. They are only, even though they're getting educated and organized, and still unorganized in a political setup. So that itself is also a very sad thing about Ambedkar Student Association or Ambedkarite movement in Karnataka. And as said, AISA is doing now in private colleges also. It's very tough to actually pierce into private organization, and I was very surprised that they are doing in the private organization. No, it's very tough to do it in the private organizations. Why? Ambedkarite organizations or AISA is doing good in government organizations is we have the power. Students are the most powerful assets of the university. So there you can raise your voice, you can agitate, and whatsoever, you can demand the impossible. And that is the place where the leaders are born. That is where what you say now in the universities and government universities are in such a space that all these communal forces are coming together. They are in the university space. They are not addressing the issues of the students. They are telling this Rashtravad, Hindutva, which doesn't have any narrative, which doesn't contribute to any of this academic work, and they are just pushing in the name, selling it in the name of Hindutva. And people after being scholars and graduates, and they say that Hindus have only India as a major country, and if we do not protect our country, again it will be at least invaded by another, it will be an Islam state or Islam country. So this is the kind of perception which has been built in the university spaces. See, who are Bahujans? SC, ST, OBCs and minorities, which comprises of 90% of the population. And they are dividing this space. And in between Dalits and OBCs also they are dividing, stating that why, and even Dalits are now, especially those who have got second generation, third generation of education, they do not know anything. Especially that kind of Dalits should actually be oriented than the new generation of Dalits, because they do not agitate. Their forefathers, if you go, I always tell them that go ask your forefathers how struggle, what kind of struggles they have made to reach out here. So in that way, we should make sure that yes, I say that Ambedkar organization should have a parent body. And
Where
yes,
do you see it emerging from? This parent body will come from the BSP is now not a force to at a national level. Where do you think it will come from?
we have to if not that, we have to build one, because what is the biggest asset of a Dalit organization is that you keep on moving, no matter what comes in. At least like a Trojan horse, you'll be keep on hiding yourself to make sure that yes, the kind of sustainable living what the Dalit wants should be carry forward from generation to generation, because we have withstanded the 2500 or 3000 years of discrimination, untouchability, every kind of thing. And now if we stop doing that, means we should pass on this the way we have inherited, the way what Baba Saheb had thought for us, and what we have thought should be inherited in the way what Baba Saheb has thought for us. And one or the other day, yes, we will have a very strong student organization of an Ambedkarite group, and I wish that it happens by a Dalit leader itself, because if let this country be led at least once by a Dalit, it should be led. I think so. If as said by Baba Saheb also, we should have seen this. Our Dalit should be in a ruling class. When are we going to see if this kind of unorganized? Yes, we are getting educated, we are getting organized, but we are not politically integrating. Especially the matter of fact in Maharashtra, it has very strong Ambedkarite groups, but they are politically unorganized. So in that way, I think so parent body is required for every student organizations to achieve the political the political aspect of in the democracy. So yes.
Artika, you want to add something to that, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Not particularly on the question of where this parent body or one centralized thing should emerge from. It's more about the fact that the kind of student space we see right now, particularly in a state that has banned student unions for more than 3 decades, it's a very depoliticized student atmosphere, irrespective of whether it's a government college or a private college. So whatever political interventions we try to take, we always have to keep in mind that there might be some kind of backlash from the administration. They allow ABVP and SUI, these very mainstream organizations, to operate in a very covert kind of level, where they have faculties who are close to the RSS, where they have faculties who are close to the Congress, who have VCs or principals who have been appointed by the Congress or the BJP, depending on who the government is being run by. So that is allowed in that space. But any kind of alternate ideas where you want to discuss Ambedkar or where you want to discuss Bhagat Singh, that will be instantly cracked down on by the administration. So that is the kind of situation we are trying to do our politics in. That is something I think we have to keep in mind every time we even go into the question that how are people going to come together. Because even in order to come together, you need a democratic space in colleges. Like just pointing at the recent APU issue, because students wanted to just read about Quran Poshpora, the ABVP came and
Azim Premji, right? Yeah.
barged into the college.
Yeah.
They defaced the facade of the college. All those things they could do and kind of get away with it because the students are not very strongly organized here in the state. So I think when we talk about how this like consolidation of students or consolidation of our politics will happen, we also have to point to the fact that how the state looks at us, looks at any organization that is trying to bring people together on some common minimum demand, that kind of thing. So in that aspect, just kind of drawing both the question you asked previously, what we do in terms of politicizing the crowd, and this question as well, what is possible in this scenario. We do run a magazine called Spark. So the point of that magazine is to specifically take these questions to the students, that our institutes are basically factories where they churn out well-behaved, obedient individuals who would serve the market as a whole. It does not create individuals who are equipped with critical thinking, who would be willing to question their immediate authorities, be it their parents, faculty, the government, anything of that sort. So we try to actively break that. That is why we have some kind of presence in private colleges. But in case of government colleges, there's already that underhanded thing that happens with ABVP and SUA. That's something where we have not yet been able to build a space. So I think it's very important that everyone with an ideology actively try to break into those spaces.
This ideology, I mean, Rahul used this interesting term, the Trojan horse, right? And that allows me to ask the other question of the AISA, which is that, Lenin, Marx, and that famous slogan, Lal Salam, was missing from all of this organizing, right? There was the iconography of the left, right? The overt iconography of the left became covert in the course of this uprising.
It was missing in Delhi.
It was missing in Delhi, in Bangalore.
Bangalore too, isn't it?
Little bit here there I heard some Lal Salam, very feeble.
Okay.
In fact, the best measure would be, I suppose, the last day, right? When you did this celebration at Freedom Park, and you gave us an opportunity to speak also over there. Thank you. Again, there, the Lal Salam, was not really echoing. Whereas I saw that there was a lot more resonance for Bhagat Singh and Ambedkar. And and again, in the case of your organization, it's one of the few left organizations which has embraced. I understand the Bhagat Singh iconography has existed across time, within left organizations, but embracing Ambedkar is something that you've done in a big way. While on one side it is exciting, so critics might also say, well, this is a shroud, in the sense it's a safe shroud, a kind of a shield, beyond which people will not attack you, saying that if you say, Marx or Lenin or any of the other icons, that it will not be received positively. How true is that? Is that strategic move to say, stick to Bhagat Singh and Ambedkar and not go beyond? How does this work? Because your party particularly draws its inspiration from Naxalbari.
Yeah.
Right? Charu Majumdar, the whole tradition comes from there. Vinod Mishra line and all of these things are happening. Very interesting experiments. In Bihar, again, we cannot call the CPIML liberation as of course, it's not the armed struggle that they are pursuing, but they are not a benign, ek thappad mara to dusra thappad kind of, they are an organization which has shown that they can hit back politically and, use political violence as a strategic tool, right? So in all of this organizing, why is this circumspection?
So it's not a strategic thing at all. Like if we say it in the literal meaning of the word strategy. So we do agree with the fact that the annihilation of caste is an important part and parcel of the Indian communist struggle. The struggle for democracy, the struggle for new democracy, a people's democracy where it's not just the small minority who gets to enjoy everything. We do feel that annihilation of caste is an important part of it. Second thing that you brought up, Naxalbari is a very important question over here. So if we look at the kind of contention that developed between the kind of struggles that were being led by Baba Saheb Ambedkar back in the 30s, 40s, particularly in terms of the textile mills, and the kind of departure, the kind of divergence that happened with respect to the communist movement, it is very much due to the kind of dogmatic approach that CPI and erstwhile like undivided Communist Party leaders had towards the caste question. It is only through the process of organizing at an agrarian level, organizing through Tebaga, Telangana, Naxalbari, that the caste question became a very, very important part of the Indian communist movement. Before that, the communist movement, in kind of a blind following of the Russian example, the general idea was that you have to organize in the cities, you have to organize the working class, the proletariats. That's how
workforce.
The revolution can only happen. But the main force of the Indian revolution has to be the peasantry. That question was not addressed. It is only through these revolts and also the Bhojpur struggle and everything that followed that it basically came from the practice itself. That unless we question the caste feudalism question in India, we cannot really go even an inch towards revolution. It is from that understanding, it is from that praxis that caste struggle and class struggle have to go hand in hand, have to go together, has to be wished together, that we are here today. So it's not like we are using Baba Saheb as an icon. Rather, we feel that the economic and political justice that was envisioned by by Bhagat Singh and the social justice that was envisioned by Baba Saheb Ambedkar has to come together, and that is the kind of India we are fighting for. So we do not at all look at the caste and class question as too distinct, as something that can be separated at all. Even in terms of how Baba Sahib Ambedkar was looking at the land question at different parts of its life, that's something we should definitely go back to and take lessons from and employ in our own struggles. So that's my perception of it.
Right. So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on Buddhism.
Not personally, no, not much. I mean, no. So
No.
I have kind of grown up in a.
No, I'm not. When I say not you, but in the
Yeah.
party, the reason I asked this is because just recently I finished recording for a series on Buddhism, focused on Navayana, and I made some startling discoveries, right? Which is how there is a very strong material analysis in all of this, and how early Marxists and socialists did actually engage with this emerging translated works from Pali to English and all of those things, and how it shaped early communists. But of course, over time, that connection was lost. So I was just offering it as a provocation, But nevertheless, I mean, when we're talking about now, we're talking already about contradictions, right? So one of the things that are pointed out as a contradiction in the communist movement is the caste question. In the same breath, one of the contradictions that we speak about in the anti-caste struggle, in the Ambedkarite struggle, is the class question, right? That the focus sometimes, some people would say, identity movements. They would very dismissively say identity movements, which of course can be, disregarded. But nevertheless, there's this question of how do you deal with the three things that the left has been agitating about, which is liberalization, globalization, privatization. Okay, we have seen traditionally that Ambedkarite Dalit parties have kind of, by way of distancing themselves or delineating themselves from the red line, they have tended to also go in favor of this LPG, right? Do you see that as a contradiction? Do you see that as a contradiction of the past? Because in the present times, there's a greater engagement. There are many Ambedkarite intellectuals who discuss industry, corporate, neo-capitalistic, these kind of frameworks and the anti-caste within it. How do you, as an organization, how do you think the Ambedkarite movement at large deals with the question of LPG, liberalization, privatization, globalization? I understand that you have been involved in some agitations recently also to do with some privatization.
Yes, as you said, we are also going on through a lot of agitation from past 8 years. Especially when I come LPG, we know that it is pertaining to all the sectors in the society. But pertaining to my specialization to the agriculture, it has, people only see about the kind of boom which it has given to the agrarian society. But what are the flaws? There might be pros, there are a lot of cons which actually has to this. Because today's generation thinks that agriculture education is kind of a fancy thing. Oh, if I get this kind of a certificate or a degree certificate, so I might be getting some government jobs or kind of some facilities from a private sector. Is that the mandate of privatizing? So what is the main mandate of agriculture is to make sure that your agrarian society is withholded very strongly to make sure that the farmers doesn't live doing the farming. If they move out of that space and they come to this tier A or tier 2 cities, what kind of contributions they are going to make? They will end up in doing group C and group D menial works. So agriculture education should not get privatized in India. But unfortunately, government has taken, central government and as well as the state government has taken the initiatives of giving affiliations to the private colleges. Why it should be given? When you have lot of government universities, ample number of seats available here, why are you giving it to the private hands? Are they doing good research? Are they giving good agriculture education? Are they going to publish good papers? And in spite of government giving crores of rupees, even today government universities are not in a stable way. are not functioning in a stable way. How these private colleges are going to give this quality research to the society? And if I strongly oppose this privatization, not only to the field of agriculture, to the field of any other kind of forms of education, let it be bought under the shelter of government itself. It should be regulated by the government. Else, the input of the students will be substandard. Only the people who are capitalist, who are having money, will come and study. Okay, there should be a space for everybody, but there should be a representation equally for all the kinds of people, right? Might it be a rural population or an urban population? We are not speaking about the kinds of population which are coming from both the ends, but equal representation should be there. In private institutions, it is missing. Those representation seats are again compromised to payment seats, management seats. Okay, now people might question why Dalits doesn't have money to buy these seats. Should our discussion should go in that way? No.
But Rahul, tell me now, is it a missed, and this is a question to both of you, when we talk about the big contradictions, right? The contradiction of the left is the caste question. The contradiction of the Ambedkarite movement is the class question, is the general understanding, right? If it's a missed opportunity, right, for anti-caste groups, for example, right? We saw people even like, this emergence of Dicky, right? The Dalit India Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and this whole, we are, pro industry and pro private capital and that kind of thing. That joining of forces that could have happened, because in the end of the day, privatization, liberalization hits hardest at the Bahujan populations, right? There was an entire generation, BSP taking such a stand over time, on LPG issues. On different counts, we have seen that the BSP took pro-LPG kind of positions, despite the fact that the BSP's backbone was the public sector undertakings, and SC/ST employees in those. Like BAMSEF was the foundation for BSP. And what is BAMSEF? BAMSEF was a Bahujan formation within the PSUs, right? And similarly, in your case, Aratrika, in the case of the communists, right? This whole question of Dalit leadership, this question of how can the vanguard, justify their leadership position beyond a point. Because this whole thing of revolutionary vanguard comes from the thing that, if you're capable, if you're schooled in the ideology, if you have the leadership ability, and also if you have a certain amount of social advantage, that you will be able to provide leadership to the masses who are not able to produce a leader. Often these kind of arguments are heard in terms of why should you have a vanguard class, right? This is one of the explanations. So I'm saying in terms of missed opportunities going forward, how do these things get accounted for? Change in courses. Do you see that happening already? How much of that is happening? Both of you. These missed opportunities on the class question, on the caste question. Yeah, Aratrika, go.
In terms of the revolutionary vanguard, I think we have to also understand that it's not only about, it's more specifically about who should lead the movement and who has the least to lose, like who have nothing to lose other than their chains. In the Indian context particularly, it is the Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasi population who need a new India. It's the biggest demand from them, not the privileged urban middle class petty bourgeois section that we have historically seen as leading communist struggles. They are not the people who have the most to gain out of a revolution. It is the Dalit people, it is the Adivasis, it is the women, the minorities who have the most to gain out of a revolution. So while it is true that the first layer of leadership usually comes from this urban middle class section who has been exposed to the ideas of Marxism, who have had some kind of organizing experience starting from a student level going forward. But the ultimate aim for even those activists should be to kind of declass themselves, go into the masses and actively become part of the masses and take the movement forward. And only through that process, I think the leadership will change into a more Dalit, Adivasi, women kind of situation. And we see that happening in front of our own eyes. Right now, there are many comrades who come from a Dalit background who are actively leading AISA. Even in the party, we see that kind of a shift happening in front of our own eyes. Even starting from Naxalbari CPIML, I think it was for the first time that people who actually came from Dalit Adivasi backgrounds became like members of the central committee, that kind of situation. That shift even happened through CPIML. So I think it's a very important question. But I also feel that the answer will come from the ground. It's not like it can be, we would have any power over the leadership in that sense that we would get to choose the leadership. The masses will choose their leadership and the leadership will emerge from the masses. And in the long run, it will definitely be the most oppressed sections of the Indian society who will bring the radical change, a structural change in the Indian situation. So I think that's where we'll eventually go towards.
No, because like Rahul, when you look at formations like the Ambedkar Students Association or any Ambedkarite student formation, it is most often restricted to government campuses, right? Going further, in a place like Bangalore, you will rarely find urban, English-speaking, elite, non-Dalit students being part of an Ambedkarite students organization, right? And conversely, in the case of AISA, like, let's take, judging by, let's say, the gathering that turned out at Freedom Park, very English, urban, elite, who by way of idiom know a little bit of Hindi. I mean, probably a lot of Hindi, but it is the demographic is very Hindu, Hindustan type, right? And so therefore, the thing is pretty evident that there is something happening by way of a there's a kind of a barrier. Just as an Ambedkarite organization is not able to attract English speaking elite upper caste Savarnas, the AISA's activities in Bangalore at least don't demonstrate that it has been able to attract people from the Dalit, Adivasi. One of the criticisms in the case of the Freedom Park gathering was that why is there no Kannada? There was absolutely no Kannada, right? It was an entirely English-speaking thing. So how does this happen now? And this becomes all the more important and urgent, perhaps, given that any day we may see electoral politics coming back into campuses. The Karnataka government is very seriously considering opening up campuses for elections. Now, how does a formation like AISA find its Dalit Bahujan cadre? How does an Ambedkarite formation convince upper caste people that Ambedkar is not only for Dalits or Adivasis or OBCs? We just talked about from irrigation to banking to, a lot of things. How does this happen? Who wants to go first?
Especially, yes, Ambedkarite organization should think beyond Dalits, because we know that especially in campuses, especially in our campuses, yes, there are the maximum representation is Dalits itself. But the things are changing over the period of time because as you said that Ambedkarite organizations are very organic, and the kind of programs we structure in the universities are to make sure that every class of every caste people should come, even academic people, professors, students should come and sit in a forum and discuss the contributions of Baba Sahibs and Bahujan leaders. I don't say Baba Sahib and also Bahujan leaders, which includes even especially in Karnataka we have Nalvade Krishnaraj Vadeyar, and also Narayan Guru and all the other Bahujan leaders. We all discuss with them these kinds of mandates. So when we discuss these kinds of topics in the university space, there will be a lot of clarification between the student mass itself. We need not have to forcefully imbibe them that no, you have to learn Ambedkar. No. When you start reading Ambedkar, when you start understanding Ambedkar, he has fought for the rights of every individual in this country. So in that way, we need to, I don't say it's attracting, we need to make them understand that Baba Sahib was a was an undisputed leader of this independent India. And by that, again, the political angle, political narrative should be said that Baba Saheb is for all classes, and in that way we have to organize in the, especially the student politics in the universities. There should, because ultimately what Ambedkarite student organization does is, it gives us free space to everybody to understand all kinds of pros and cons of all kinds of leaders in the society. After that, you need to decide whom to choose. But yes, we have to make sure that, especially if politics is entering to the university spaces, the Dalits should not only be a Dalit group, it should be a Bahujan group in the universities. Especially Bahujans includes Dalits, Adivasis, minorities and OBCs. Hinda. If this consolidates to one particular group, I think so it is unstuck. Yeah, 82% of the population in one side means, I think so that will give a lot of change to the student politics in Bangalore. We know that even if now also if it happens, 16% of the Dalits, do you really have 16% of the Dalits in the campuses? No, they have at least 8% of the population of scheduled tribes. No, still the representations are low, very low. Where do these people vote for? Whom do they vote for? Should they vote for BJP? Should they vote for Congress?
You mean NSUI or ABP?
ABP. Are these only the two options? University space should always have this third front also.
And this third front will be made up of what? AISA and AISA, is it?
Yeah. And yes, because see, again what we say, to these national parties will have the student wings according to their ideologies. But what actually the student needs is decided within the university. It is not the narrative of the nations, it is the narratives of the universities, right? What kind of activities should be done for the welfare of the students. It is decided. If that goes good, if that circumstances go good, right? Even merging with organizations will be of good thing, right? See, that is...
I suppose your biggest challenge is that the majority communities are a minority in campuses. The Bahujans, though they are 70-80% of the population, are probably 20-30% of the student crowd in any of these institutions, right?
Yes.
Because seats are never filled.
Seats are never filled, and sometimes the thing is, most of the time it's filled. But the thing is, when it comes to the student politics, right, it is again divided. Because we do not have this political orientation in the universities, because we have not seen the elections from past how many years, like 15-20 years,
More than 30.
more than 30 years, 3 decades.
After Lingdo.
Yeah, we have,
It has been longer than that, I think.
more than, I hope so, in 3 decades. How can a person coming to the universities suddenly adapt to that change of suddenly bringing the elections? Yes, it is required. It's a democratic process. It is required. But are the Bahujans ready for this? Is also a big question. Yes, we want the elections, but Bahujans getting ready for the elections is too tough, because again the polls are made apart to only concentrate on this BJP backed student organization or Congress backed NSVA organizations. No, there should be more organizations, and especially which works for the welfare of the students in the university, and all that groups should unite together to make a strongest third front. We should be the decision makers, because these people will won't have this credibility of solving the problems. Only to just have it to personal gains, they will butcher the dreams of the students in the organizations. So that should not happen, right? And especially in the places like Bangalore, a first generation kid is coming and learning here means he would have a lot of dreams. He will not end up in any political misconduct. If that happens, his complete academia is ruined. So keeping all this in mind, the organizations should work according to the welfare of the students of the university, but not having this perspective of a national anti communal forces, what is propagated by BJP, or sometimes just a name of a student wing in a NSUI wing. So that should not be the mandate. So I personally feel to have a strong third front in the university spaces.
So a few points here, just drawing on to the question, like, who do you see as the AISA cadre? That is not the case in say Delhi or Kolkata or Bihar, Jharkhand, anywhere else. It's the mass is comprised of government students, government college students. Even in Karnataka, if you look at other districts, the AISA cadre mostly comprises of agrarian, like people coming from a rural background, Dalit students, Muslim students, Adivasi students of that sort. In Bangalore, the situation is that the first layer of organizers are not local, including me. We are not local. So we do not have the kind of language proficiency or the cultural, I would say, acumen to easily mix into the crowd and kind of politicize students. So that has been a long-standing lacuna from our end. But now we are gradually seeing students who are locals who are coming into the organization, including students from government colleges. So hopefully in the next 3 to 4 years, the entire scenario will change even in Bangalore. Secondly, this CJP phenomenon and the reflection of it in Bangalore, it's the overall agitation has a very typical North Indian character. So people who are from UP, MP, Bihar, Jharkhand, Haryana, all these states basically, they were much more, the entire incident appealed to them much more than it appealed to people from say Karnataka or even I would say Telangana, the south states basically. So that was also reflected in the crowd that we saw in Freedom Park, of which I think at least 90% were not from Karnataka and most of them were Hindi speaking. So the kind of conversations, the kind of sloganeering, the kind of overall the language makeup of that crowd was also very much non-Kannada. So I think these two issues as are the reasons behind our particular composition as well as that crowd's composition. The third thing, as when it comes to the student union election question, we have to understand that something like DU elections where NACU, ABVP, they win most of the time. So general student elections, it's usually a play of money and muscle. When it comes to these student organization, this mainstream NSVI, ABVP kind of outfits. When it comes to left student groups, they have been able to make any kind of impact only if they have led any kind of movement on student demands. Until and unless they have raised student demands, they have fought with the authority, they haven't been able to gain any kind of traction within the students. They cannot give students free food coupons. They cannot make them go to the theatre and watch some Hindi movie. That kind of money they don't have. It is on the basis of the kind of movements they do. It is on the basis of the kind of wins they're able to make, like rally students together and fight against the authority and get some reforms made within the campus. It is on the basis of that they can win elections. So the third front, if that happens, it has to be built on the basis of some kind of movement. So that's the last point I wanted to add.
And this movement, the way when you see the kind of forces that are set against you, it's a very scary thing, right? Because I know what DU elections are like. I mean, I don't know if you've seen, Rahul, you've mostly, done activism in Bangalore, which is somewhat safe. DU elections are basically these, 16-inch bicep guys coming in their Thars.
Landowners from Haryana.
Right? And Mikka is coming and performing.
Yeah.
Like, all these very, very scary things happen. People vanish for 10 days during the election. Certain candidates are just picked up and they're released after the elections. Any number of scary things happen. And we know that in Karnataka also, back when student politics was around, it was these groups which were dominating. So when Aratrika says that movement, horata, right? Horatadalli, you're literally facing the prospect of losing a limb, perhaps worse. It's dangerous, right? So counterintuitively, can you still argue that no, don't open up the elections in Karnataka? Because if you do, automatically you have a consolidation for these two parties, and the JDS also will have one third. The third front will be JDS.
BJP won't allow that to happen, perhaps. Let's see.
How dangerous, how possible are these things? Do you play a role in electoral politics at all? Or do you act as a pressure group? One of the things that progressive movements have done for a long time in India is they have realized that you cannot win elections in India anymore, given how the electoral system is. Right? As a result, they play the role of pressure groups. Right? Mass mobilization, mass movements, grassroots activism.
See, especially in the the elections happening in universities. Yes, it is required. It is required. But the thing is, at what cost? Especially for Bahujans. Should they act as a pressure group, or should they act as one of the deciding factors? See, till now what it is happening is we fight, and that 5% of the population decides whom to be the leader. Even now also we have that capacity of doing it. We can do that. But as you said that having this political organizations in university should be there. Because if you don't have this political literacy in the university, when you come out of the universities, you will not be able to at least counter these facts, right? And moreover, as you said that elections should have this narratives of, as I said that elections should have the narrative only from the perspective of the student welfare. If it goes beyond it, again you are indirectly supporting to a party. Especially to the Bahujan group, where we actually now lack a parent body. Now we actually lack a parent body. If BSP would have been in the space, we would have convinced all the other upper class to be a part of it, part of us, and make sure that we will have this a democratic setup. Do you think BJP will have a people who doesn't believe in a democracy? How will they have a democratic setup in the university space? Or Congress, sometimes it says that we are democratic, and sometimes, most of the time, they act as per the Savarnas says. So that should not be the space. Ultimately, elections are run democratically, which means that we should respect democracy, and whoever the students who support the democracy should have a separate wing. It is not like any political parties are under democracies, but the parties which support the students which support the democracy should have a separate wing. Might it be in the name of AISA, might it be in the name of AISA, or any other things. Especially this group should be as a pressure points and should act as a third front. If that doesn't happen, again this will be one time it will be a BJP guy, or one time it will be an SUA guy. So that should not be a space, especially in a university space. I do not have, because even I am also very not confident about it, because I have also not faced any kind of elections, because I am a nominated president. I was a nominated president. But I have a strong belief that once the elections comes into the spaces, right? Yes, Dalits will not be having that much strength, money or muscle or kind of support externally in the university. Again, they will be under the hands of these two or other parties, as you said. So if that's the case, it's better that the Dalits and the Adivasi groups acts as a pressure points in this process, and if possible also attract to be a strongest third front in the university.
Is that how you see it, Aritika? I mean, as a pressure group, is that how? Because, I mean, I know many of your comrades in the CPIML, in the main party in Karnataka. Even under a Congress regime, they're struggling to keep their heads above water. So while on one side you might have an ASA which does not have a parent body, your parent body is made up of people who are holding on to very little ground by way of power, influence, money, right? People such as Clifton, Lekha, Maitri, who are in the CPI-ML liberation, are so stretched, right? They're also lawyers, sometimes they're fighting in, Devanhalli, next thing you know, they're fighting some atrocity somewhere, next thing you know, there's some, criminal case somewhere, some, dowry harassment case. I mean, there are any number of things that they're stretched and they're trying to do. And, this parent body that you might have, at least to the extent of Karnataka, is not a powerful body which is going to be able to, come to your aid or rescue. Given that you want to do this agitational kind of politics, where you want to do movement building, grassroots activism, how do you see it playing out? Do you think a pressure group is a better option for you?
The reason why this demand for student union elections has been part and parcel of our activities from the very beginning in Karnataka. So there are two broad reasons why. Not going into the question of the overall electoral situation in India, we have the SIR, we have the BJP washing machine, we have the rampant electoral bond crisis. So not going into that question, but at least at a campus level, there are two primary reasons why we should support the idea of at least the implementation of student union elections. One is that it is directly connected to a student's learning experience, what they get out of the education system. The reason why there are so many fee hikes, the reason why there is no faculty recruitment, there are not enough college buildings, scholarship is irregular, hostels are, SC/ST hostels are in a complete abysmal situation. So it's not possible to address any of it unless students have some kind of democratic representation on campuses. How would you even raise the matter of a roof that is leaking in the government hostel of the medical college unless you have a student union in the medical college? You will go give a bunch of petitions to the VC and they will just not really care about it. Because there's no pressure group inside, elected pressure group. That's what we need. A student union keeps the administration in check, keeps the government in check. So it's very important for us as students to go into that kind of exercise. It is very true that in India, even student union elections have a history of violence. But then that is true for the mainstream election as well. So can we really say that?
No, violence is not as much, violence is not the only thing. It's the influence, right? Which is that the student body or the elected union is an arm of the elected state government.
That's of course a kind of problem that might arise. But that also should not stop us from demanding it. The second point I was trying to make here is that it is the only, when elections happen in a campus, that is the only time students are willing to hear about politics, like what's happening in society. That might not be the thing throughout the year, but at least during elections, they would listen to it. They would actually actively engage with you. So, as a whole, student union elections, the preparation to it, the run-up to it, everything together, give student organizations, particularly people like us, a kind of window to speak with students, to take our message to students that might not be available otherwise. So, I think these are the reasons why we should definitely push for it. I mean, Siddaramaiah said that this will be done through the state budget, but then we have not really gotten anything beyond it. So I think it's high time something happens in Karnataka.
No, the government is always, promising things. Particularly the Karnataka government has promised a lot of things. And one of the things that is promised
Rohith Act as well.
is the Rohith Act, right? And I think, if you'll allow me, I'd like to kind of, to bring this conversation to a close. Focusing on the collaboration that your two organizations, there was supposed to be a third person here from SIO, from the Students Islamic Organization, which is a student wing of the Jamaat-e-Islami Hind. Hayyan, he couldn't come. But all of you collaborated in the lobbying and the drafting of the Rohith Act, right? What was that collaboration like? What are those intersection points? What were your takeaways from that collaboration? Because AISA was part of it. Rahul's AISA was part of the Rohith campaign in Karnataka, and so was SIO, which is very interesting because, particularly in your case, most left organizations, the SFI, ISF, do not want to associate with a Muslim organization, right? In the case of ASA, you had the opportunity over here to collaborate with an organization which has taken one step in your direction, right? Which is engaging with an Ambedkar, which was an opportunity not available earlier when you were dealing with SFI, AISF and things like that. So just memories from this collaboration, this organization that you did, and now you've managed to successfully lobby with the state government to the extent that they have promised that in the next monsoon session they will table the Rohith Act. What are the big takeaways from this collaboration?
First of all, this collaboration is not new for us. ASA, SIO, AISA, we have been collaborating on a lot of issues. With SIO particularly, when this whole issue of the reservation being taken away for OBC Muslims happened in Karnataka. From that time itself, we have been collaborating on a lot of different issues. So this, what I would say is a very important takeaway from this Rohith Act, the entire exercise, is that we could see something happen in front of our own eyes. Like we could see how that entire movement, how the protests we did, how the lobbying, that everything that happened, that could actually lead to something being added in the state budget itself, like being declared from there. So I think that's a huge, it's like a success that we're seeing in real time. Sometimes what happens, we do things, but it's not like we're immediately seeing the fruits of it. But this was one moment we could see the fruits in front of our eyes. So that's one takeaway. The other thing is that despite this being a Congress government, the SIO, ASA, all these organizations, they have shown that they're not shying away from questioning the Congress government. Like, it's not only the BJP that we are all against, but also anyone who is not willing to take up the correct economic policies, the correct pro-student policies, we're willing to question them. So I think that's also another important point of unity that has emerged from the entire exercise.
Wow, interesting. Rahul?
So it has been a 2.5 years Rohith campaigns. When it started, it is a 2.5 years old campaign, which is not a small thing, because holding up a campaign for 2.5 years with all the different mindsets, because here we had lawyers, we had student organizations, we had different political organizations indirectly might be supporting, and also journalists who were consistently giving their inputs towards this rowing, and different other thinkers, intellectuals who had contributed to this Rohith. And first of all, we have to completely thank them to keeping hold of the strong campaign. And especially it was a great opportunity for us also to collaborate with, because it was as you said, that it was a very first time for us to collaborate with other student organizations, might it be SIO or AISA. The common thing what integrated all of us is that Rohith Vemula, I should say that we should thank him for integrating all of us. Because in 2015, when the institution murder happened, 2016, I was in my first year of my UG. We protested, but we didn't have that much of impact of that letter. But when we entered the PhD space or higher education in MSc, when we read that letter, right, the kind of impact we had in the student masses was a Dalit, especially a Dalit, writing that kind of letter. It is not that much. You cannot see in many of the scholars, and that letter itself has made this campaign very active. And today, if the Rohith Act is going to be passed in this monsoon session, it would be a biggest milestone. And thanks to the Rohith campaign team, Karnataka, for taking all these. I know that the kind of struggles which we went through, the kinds of lobbying that we did, the kind of, sometimes we had some low times, sometimes high times. The thing is, we ultimately are now in the last leg of getting implemented. But why did we integrate it was the main question, was to, yes, we have all faced the discrimination in the universities. Might it be AISA, might it be ASA, or might it be SIO. We are facing the discriminations by the Savarnas in the university. Ultimately, what the students, the faculties, the teaching and the non-teaching should be safeguarded in this Rohith Act, which has been strongly done by the campaign team. And the main part is, even though if it comes to existence, the main part lies in the implementation. And today, we have the strong feeling that the Rohith Campaign Act Karnataka has also made the framework to how to reach out to reach out to the students once the act is implemented. And we should not only say that campaign team we didn't knew that we would be the part of this campaign firstly, but the campaign team reached out to us. Unfortunately, the thing is, campaign team has reached out to all the student organizations. Else, I think so, even being an Ambedkarite organization, we would have missed this opportunity to give our inputs to this act. So strongly thankful to the I don't so, but I would like to say that we should thank this Rohith campaign group Karnataka for reaching out to all kinds of people to get inputs to this formation of this campaign.
Right. No, this Rohith Act, one of the things that has been said about it is that while at this point in time it is focused on SCs and STs, both of you were part of the discussions in the course of arriving at this, because leading up to this arrival, that it should be right now restricted to SC and ST, there were other inputs that came saying that why not OBCs? Why not Muslims? Why not women? Why not LGBT students? Why shouldn't every discriminated group be covered under an anti-discrimination law? Right? Because this is an anti-discrimination law, and there are different groups of discriminated people. And through these discussions, one of the things that came through was that this business of first liberating the most oppressed, right? And how this can have a compounded effect, or kind of a snowballing effect, where it becomes a reference point. The Rohith Act, which is now focused on SC/STs, becomes a reference point for the other marginalized groups seeking inclusion into the protective umbrella of this act. And therein perhaps there's an opportunity for mobilization, right, of this 70%, 75% of the student population, saying that we can have an umbrella. That's the real dream, right, which is that there'll be an umbrella coalition of the oppressed, right? So therefore, going forward, do you see this as a potential to kind of expand your politics in terms of anti-discrimination politics within campuses? Atika?
So the implementation of Act itself was a uniting factor, of course. Not implementation, I mean the tabling of the Act itself.
The drafting and all of that, yeah.
Everything together. So I think if the implementation happens, and when it happens, I think through it we can probably see that kind of thing happening, that kind of question emerging from the students itself, that why only this particular section, why not us as well? If that question emerges from the students as a whole, I think that would be the driving force behind increasing the scope of it, or having some kind of new act that will bring all of these groups together. But for now, I think it's very important that we address like the elephant in the room. It might be a very valid critique that why not the other disadvantaged sections of the society as well. But at least we have to start somewhere. For example, we have the Prevention of Atrocities Act, which is specifically about caste atrocities. The reason is that it's not like we have mob lynchings happening against Muslims every day in India. But then again, it has to start somewhere. Then we can increase the scope of the law. It can become part of the popular psyche as a whole. So we have to start somewhere. So I think this is a very important first step that we have taken. We have all come together and taken, and probably the implementation of it. And if we can keep the pressure up, so that it actually leads to the changing of lives for some students, so that students do not drop out because they're facing discrimination in colleges. Because even in IITs, if anyone goes through the draft, they would see that in the IITs, IISc, all these institutes of eminence, all the suicides that happen, the majority of it come from actually SC/ST backgrounds. So that's where the entire ideation, a large part of it came from there. That is also true when it comes to dropouts, which might be a little less visible form of discrimination that they have had to experience. So we have to address that, and in the course of addressing it, the broader questions can be addressed. Unless the principal thing has been addressed, how do we solve the smaller, like compared to that smaller contradictions? That is the point here.
As we know that atrocities cases are more to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, and not only in Karnataka, in the entire entire India. So as of now, we have only concentrated Rohith Act to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe only on the basis of the atrocities, for the atrocities of students in the universities. As you said, there is a great scope for the other OBC students and as well as the minority students. Even they have also faced, I don't say that they have also equally faced the same kinds of atrocities. Different kind. Might it not be in a very in a grounded way, but in an academia spaces, like while choosing your guides of your same caste, or might it be your advisory committees, or while giving your vivas. So they have also faced a lot of problems. And the thing is, it might not be recorded as an atrocity, but here for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe or the Dalit students, on the basis of the atrocities number itself, as of now, it is concentrated only to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe students. Over the period, this will be a precedence for the OBCs, minorities to frames and again draft a new bill, or to come up with an alternative to protect the discrimination, or to protect the the harassments or the discrimination happening for them also. So I think that let this first happen, and then everything follows back. Because if we do not, as I said, that if we do not concentrate the elephant in the room, then I think so it will not lead to a logical end. Now to this, especially Rohith Act, all SC, ST, OBCs and minorities have contributed. Same way we should also set the same kind for the OBCs and minorities, and should make sure that the discrimination in the campuses should stop, and the harmony of the university should be withstanded. Because if you have that harmony, you will concentrate more to your academia work, you will contribute more to your research work. Else you will be stuck up only within this, might it be a political agenda, or might it be an organization agenda. So that is not the space we should be in. Yes, we need to know all kinds of social activities, all kinds of political activities, but the thing is, and not at the cost of your academics, because that should be your main intention. For that is the purpose why you have joined to the university spaces.
Right. Okay. So I think this is where we'll have to close. Right. There's a lot more to talk. I mean, there'll always be other opportunities. I hope you guys do things out there which will give us more opportunities to talk with these upcoming elections, if it ever happens. I'm sure there'll be an occasion again to discuss these things. If the Rohith Act gets tabled, we know that it's not going to be an easy journey from there on forward with what the governor's office might do and things like that. So all of these, I think, will be opportunities for us to reconvene. And when we do, I hope that Hayan or someone from the SIO can also be there. But I think this is a conversation starter. This is the first conversation which I'm having with students, and I think that this has been a big gap for me. I've not really worked hard enough to understand what you guys are thinking. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and helping me understand how student politics works out here. So before I go, I once again want to remind you that it is very difficult to keep an antiviral show like this on air. This is not an infotainment show, and that's why the only thing that can keep this alive is a subscriber base. 500 people paying 500 rupees a month can save this effort. There's also an Independence Day offer going on, which gives you a 6-month subscription for just 1947 rupees. Thanks for supporting the News Minute and News Laundry.